Viewers, hello. I've just received a phone call saying that my court case has been moved. I was due to be in the High Court of London, which makes sense because that's where my crime should be heard, but they've moved it to Woolwich Crown Court. Now why would they do that? Because with Woolwich Crown Court there's a tunnel that goes underneath into Belmarsh Prison. What is Belmarsh Prison? Well, Belmarsh Prison is the maximum security facilities of any prison that my country has. It's where the worst criminals, the worst jihadists, the worst terrorists are all housed. So the decision's already been made that this next Monday or Tuesday, for the crime of showing you a film, the film's in my pinned tweet, for the crime of showing you a documentary that shows you the truth, that shows you witness testimonies, that shows you evidence, which is all the stuff that they tried to hide, I will, by this time next week, I'll be residing on solitary confinement in the most maximum security prison this country has. Now, just so people understand, the crime I've committed is a civil offence. It's a civil offence, and you should, if you get done for it, if no one ever goes jail for this, no one ever goes jail, yeah? You'll see what sentence I get. I predict I'm given a minimum of 2 years in prison, okay? But you'll see the sentence that I get, and even if you are sent into custody, you go to an open prison, where you go home, where you go to work, where you're out of your cell all day. British prison system, you're out yourself 8 or 9 hours a day. I'm going to be put on solitary confinement for the crime of believing in freedom of speech and freedom of the press. I'm a journalist, it's 2024, and these same crimes and this same tyranny is coming to your country through your judicial system.
Can you also mention a little bit about what also can happen when they maybe transform you from one room to another one?
And the problem I have is when I land in that prison, everyone knows I'm coming. So my guard has to be up instantly. If they transfer me from one wing to another wing, anything at all, then there's a risk to my life, yeah? And they know that and I know that. But within Belmarsh, there are prisons within the prison. So I believe I will go into Belmarsh, I won't see anyone, I'll be locked in a room, and a year later or 2 years later, I'll be let out of the room. So I won't even leave that area, or I won't walk down any corridors, I guarantee you, yeah? That's what I believe, because that's the only way they'll be able to keep me alive. So if not, I won't survive the sentence. We'll see what happens.
Before Tommy Robinson's imprisonment, I had the opportunity to speak with him about his concerns and fears regarding the possibility of being sent to Belmarsh Prison, a maximum security institution infamous in the UK for housing some of the country's most dangerous and high-risk offenders. For Tommy, the thought of confinement there was deeply troubling, especially given the sudden change in his court proceedings. Originally, his case was scheduled to be heard at the High Court of London, which made sense to him given the nature of his alleged offence, which was essentially a civil matter. But the case was unexpectedly moved to Woolwich Crown Court, a facility with an underground passageway directly connecting to Belmarsh. This decision led him to believe that authorities had already decided his fate, and that Belmarsh was now an inevitable part of his future. For Tommy, Belmarsh Prison represented not only physical confinement, but also a symbolic trial. One that he felt reflected a broader struggle over the rights to free speech and journalistic freedom. Known for its extreme security measures and highly restricted environment, Belmarsh houses individuals convicted of the most severe crimes, from terrorism to organized crime and violent offenses. Tommy was aware that such a setting typically involves strict isolation, minimal human contact, and constant surveillance. In his mind, being sent there meant that he would likely be placed in solitary confinement for extended periods, perhaps for months or even years. He anticipated being confined to his cell for the majority of each day, a setup drastically different from what he believed would normally apply to civil cases. Most civil offenders serve time in open prisons where they have certain freedoms to work, interact, and spend hours outside their cell. But for him, it seemed clear that Belmarsh would mean isolation and restricted movement, conditions reserved for those considered a threat to society. Tommy was also profoundly concerned about the immediate risks to his safety within the walls of Belmarsh. Due to his high profile and controversial stance on freedom of speech, he knew he would be recognized throughout the prison, and he feared that this visibility would make him a target. The prison holds a mix of offenders, including extremists and hardened criminals, some of whom might view him as an ideological opponent. He anticipated that even the smallest movements within the prison, such as transfers from one wing to another, could expose him to significant risk. He expressed his belief that such transfers which might seem routine in other settings, could endanger his life in Belmarsh. His expectations were of an environment where security measures would be taken to an extreme. He expected to be in a prison, within a prison, within a prison. A highly confined section designed to minimize his exposure to other inmates. This approach, he believed, would be necessary to ensure his survival amid such dangerous surroundings. Beyond physical risks, Tommy saw his case and potential imprisonment as part of a larger conflict between individual rights and institutional control. For him, this wasn't just a legal matter. It was a test of fundamental principles he had long championed, particularly freedom of speech and the right of the press to hold authorities accountable. He was convinced that his case was being used to set an example, to deter others from challenging powerful institutions or publicly questioning mainstream narratives. The alleged offense that brought him to court stemmed from his decision to share a documentary online, a film he believed exposed truths and testimonies suppressed by conventional media. In Tommy's view, this documentary was an act of transparency, a way of showing the public the full picture. But he felt that his punishment went beyond what was just, as if he were being penalized not for the offense itself, but for daring to show a version of events that authorities preferred to keep hidden. This symbolism weighed heavily on Tommy. He feared that his imprisonment would set a precedent for how voices of dissent are handled in the future. To him, this was about more than serving time. It was a trial of resilience and commitment to principles he saw as integral to a free society. He believed that his journey through the prison system could serve as a warning to others about the potential consequences of speaking out. He feared that his confinement could discourage others from expressing unpopular opinions, essentially silencing voices that would otherwise hold power to account. This thought troubled him deeply, as he believed that silencing these voices could lead to a society where critical perspectives are no longer heard or valued. In our conversation, Tommy also expressed concern for his family and supporters, recognizing the impact his imprisonment would have on them. He worried about the emotional strain his absence would place on his loved ones and feared that his supporters would feel powerless to intervene. More than that, he was concerned that his imprisonment might intimidate others who shared similar views or who valued the freedom to speak openly. He saw his case as a test of society's commitment to free expression, fearing that his confinement could send a message that questioning authority comes with serious consequences. He worried that people, seeing what he was enduring, would feel discouraged from voicing dissent or challenging official narratives. At the core of Tommy's fears was a conviction that his imprisonment was about more than justice. It was about making a statement. He saw Belmarsh not only as a place of confinement, but as a symbol of the broader issue he was confronting. To him, the decision to send him to such a high-security facility was part of a larger attempt to dissuade individuals from challenging the system. He viewed his case as emblematic of a shift in society, where those who speak out are increasingly facing punitive measures designed to silence them. As we wrapped up our discussion, Tommy's determination was clear. Despite his fears, he seemed resolute in his commitment to his beliefs, prepared to face whatever awaited him in Belmarsh as a matter of principle. For him, this was not merely about enduring a sentence. It was about standing firm in the face of adversity and upholding the right to free expression, even if it meant confronting one of the most challenging chapters of his life. The conversation left me with a profound sense of the inner conflict he was grappling with, the mix of fear, defiance, and resolve that he would carry with him into the confinement of Belmarsh. For Tommy, this journey was more than a legal battle. It was a fight to keep alive a set of values he felt were increasingly under threat.